but that 88 is pulling away.
Earnhardt, Johnson, Menard, Blaney, third-generation star Dale Earnhardt Jr. brings him to the flag. Checkered flag waving. It's over. It's Earnhardt. Earnhardt trying to cover all spots.
Oh, yeah! Good job, Junebug.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. Checkered flag at Talladega.
Why is this one so much fun? Because your grin told so many stories on your cool-down lap.
It's just real emotional. I haven't won here in a long time. It was my daddy's birthday a couple days ago. Just real emotional, man.
My nerd world.
As a talk show host by trade, right, somebody who talks 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then a few more hours every weekend recording this Dale Jr. Race Preview podcast, my Star Wars podcast, and then other news podcasts that I do on occasion, all of which you can find on the John Justice Show iTunes, unless that's where you already got this from. It's interesting to me because you don't hear, and maybe I'm just now reaching that age, you don't often hear discussions, anybody talk at length about how, as we get older, the people around you get older, our heroes, our idols, if you will, doing that thing with my fingers, using that term lightly, very lightly, get older as well, and all the different ramifications of that. I've dealt with an issue this week, kind of relates to what's going on with Dale Earnhardt Jr., in as much to say that people around me are getting older, and I'm getting older, and as we get older, things don't function and work as well as we would like them to, and we are sometimes faced with mortality, and it's not an easy thing to deal with. Not anything new. Everybody is going to have to deal with it. Not something that gets talked about a lot because it's not something really all that much fun to talk about. But after seeing Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s update this week, it has just reminded me once again that we are all getting older and raised a lot of questions in my mind on a number of different fronts. Some serious, some not so serious, some about my watching of NASCAR and what I will do in the future. All of this is to say I wish that I had better news for the Dale Earnhardt Jr. Race Preview podcast heading into Pocono this weekend, but unfortunately, I don't. Dale Earnhardt Jr. gave an update on Twitter just this weekend. I will share with you what that update is, my thoughts on it, and my thoughts and expectations of when I think Dale Jr. will return to the track. Obviously, Jeff Gordon was set to run this weekend at Pocono anyways, but we were all kind of looking to Watkins Glen. And I'll say this up front before I get to this portion of it and talk a little bit about Jeff. I didn't expect, and I certainly now, after what Dale Earnhardt Jr. has written, I didn't expect that Dale Jr. was going to get back at the car at Watkins Glen. Just simply because of how dangerous that track is in terms of wrecks. You don't really lightly wreck. You get in fender benders at Watkins Glen, but if you go for a ride at Watkins Glen, you have the potential for some really, really bad wrecks at Watkins Glen. I think we see some of our worst wrecks at Watkins Glen. So the podcast today won't be too long because we still don't have Dale Earnhardt Jr. back, and because of that, there's not a ton to get into. We're also not getting a ton of details and information from Jeff Gordon either. I'm a little bit, I don't want to say concerned, but I am. I'm a little bit worried going into Pocono tomorrow. I'll explain why in today's podcast. But let me go back to the beginning of what I was mentioning, and it's been an incredibly long week for me, just in my regular job, my work job. I've had to go out and just do multiple appearances this weekend. All things are relative. It's just I'm a homebody at heart, and having to do the job, come home, and then go back out again. I've had to do that for 4 days in a row. It's just brutal. Again, reminding me at 44 years old that I'm getting older. I don't think I've mentioned this on the Dale Jr. podcast, but I am 44, and I personally have had to have gone through 2 open heart surgeries. In 2009. Is that the first one? 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. So in 2009, I had a heart attack, and I ended up in the hospital, obviously. And it turns out that my arteries were clear. You know, I didn't have any clogged arteries in my heart. What I did have, though, was a bicuspid valve that was deformed. I had a birth defect. Your aortic heart valve is three flaps and regulates the blood flow in and out of your heart going up into your ascending aorta. I only had two. I was born with two and had no idea. And because of that, over a long enough period of time, it'll stop functioning properly, and the blood will get backed up, and it'll actually clot on the valve. And doctors believe that one of those blood clots flew off the valve and got stuck in one of my arteries, and that's what triggered my heart attack. On top of that, because of that heart valve, I had an ascending aortic aneurysm. My aneurysm had expanded. Or my aorta had expanded into an aneurysm and could have burst, and if it had burst, I would have died. So they went in and put in a mechanical valve. They put a graft in for my aorta, and now I should live a regular life. I just had to be on blood thinners. Now, because of those blood thinners, I ended up getting a hematoma, essentially a really large blood clot bruise in my side, which unfortunately got infected, so I had to have that removed. And then in 2012, I ended up getting a CT scan for some back pain that I was dealing with. I was working out at the time and had some really persistent back pain. And I'll work through this quickly. I know this isn't John's medical podcast. This is the Dale Jr. podcast, but it leads into what I want to talk about today. So I ended up getting a CT scan. On the CT scan, they discovered something around my heart they didn't like. They had to go back in. It turns out that there was a leak, a hole in the graft that they put in to replace the aneurysm on my ascending aortic aneurysm. They had put a graft in. There was a hole, and it had developed this massive blood clot around my heart that thankfully it hadn't burst. So I had to have another open heart surgery, and they had to go in and patch everything back up again. Okay, so I'm in relatively good shape health-wise. My heart attacks and my heart issue had nothing to do with lifestyle. It was all just things that I was born with. But when I see individuals dealing with medical issues, there's a deep level of sympathy that I have there. This week, I lost a good friend of mine and a fellow talk show host by the name of Jerry Doyle. He was a syndicated talk show host, had a website, Epic Times, and through the internet earlier this week, I found out that he passed away. Still don't know why, but he was an individual who had led a good life, but a fast life, and I think it caught up with him. So, I lose my buddy Jerry, and he was only 60 years old. And then to see Dale Earnhardt Jr. dealing with these medical conditions that are related to his racing, but he's also not getting any younger. He's 40 now. You're just reminded you're getting older. I don't know. I guess I don't have much more of a larger point than that, except to say that, my personal selfish desire to see Dale Earnhardt Jr. return to the track is being vastly overshadowed by my personal also desire to see Dale Earnhardt Jr. get better. And that's not to say that and I said that all along, that I think for most of us fans, for you, for me, we all put Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s health above everything else. But we still have that desire in the back of our minds that, well, I wonder if he'll make it back this race. And, boy, I hope he's back. And when you see the update to which Dale Jr., this was today, he posted here on Saturday, update, no change lately. Symptoms have plateaued over the last week. Balance/gaze stabilization are only issues. Docs preaching patience. I imagine for Junior it must be getting frustrating for him because he probably is feeling a little bit better, but at the same time wanting to return to the track really bad the longer he's away, knowing that he can't because he has to take care of himself. So my personal desire, my selfish desire to see Dale Earnhardt Jr. return to the track is really, for me personally, I'm really pushing that down and thinking about Dale Jr. and realizing that, you know what, he probably should sit out for a longer period of time. And I really do, and I felt that before, and I still feel that way now, but I think it needs to be reiterated. I really do hope for him as a person, because that's why we're fans of Dale Earnhardt Jr., right? That he really does get himself better, so he doesn't have to go through this again, because getting old sucks, and it shouldn't suck that much, and it certainly shouldn't suck that much because of doing what you love. And that's the part of it that I find has got to be really tough for Dale Earnhardt Jr., because he loves to race, and this is his life. And the thing that he loves to do is keeping him from doing the thing that he loves to do, because he can't get back in the race car, because being in the race car is what gave him the concussion in the first place. So I can't even imagine how difficult it must be for Dale Jr. And I'm sure he's probably taking stock of his life and the rest of his career and his future, and probably thinking long and hard about how long he's going to stay in this, and maybe even reassessing his own goals, knowing that he wants to build a life with Amy when they get married and have children. So it's really bringing up other questions, just as it relates to, not nearly as serious, okay, but we're just, this is a podcast, and it's about Dale Jr. and my thoughts on Dale Jr. It's also making me think more about, well, you know what? What's life going to be like without Dale Jr. when he's not racing? We're kind of getting a glimpse of that now. I know I am. I'm sure a lot of fans are dealing with that too. I'll be rooting again for Jeff Gordon this weekend, but it's not the same. It's not the same. It's going to be less fun than I tried to make it last weekend watching Indianapolis. I really went into Indianapolis really excited, thinking, man, this will be great. Jeff Gordon will fill in this week. Maybe he has a chance to win it because he's so good at the Brickyard, and then he'll be there for Pocono, and then maybe we'll have Junior back by Watkins Glen. And maybe he'll still be close enough in the points to where he can make it in. And all of that is getting further and further, sort of down the backstretch. any thoughts of that? I'm getting to the point now where, while I think that perhaps Dale Jr. can still make the chase with a win when he returns, I'm beginning to look at the situation more like, let's just see how many races are left in the season when he returns, and not even think about any shot at the chase. And if it gets pushed farther than that, I think it's going to be a matter of, let's see if Dale Earnhardt Jr. returns to the track at all this season. Because look, right now, probably a good time for Dale Jr. to not be at the track racing, because Hendrick Motorsports is behind the 8-ball in a big way. I know that Jimmy Johnson, I think, qualified 10th, but it still doesn't seem like any of the Hendrick cars are anywhere near to performing as well as Penske and Joe Gibbs and just Toyotas in general. So, apart from missing the chase, if Dale Earnhardt Jr. in any season was going to miss a bunch of races and miss an opportunity to compete in the playoffs, the chase for the championship, this was the season to do it, just based off of how far behind Hendrick Motorsports is. So before we talk about Jeff Gordon and the opportunities for this weekend and how long Jeff Gordon may be sitting in the car, let's talk about that now. Let's go ahead and go there now. How long will Jeff Gordon be sitting in the car? Okay. So Dale Jr.'s comment that no change lately, symptoms have plateaued over the last week, balance, gaze, stabilization are only issues, doc preaching patience. I think we can expect come Monday, he's supposed to go to the doctors again on Monday and then provide the public with an update, which he doesn't have to do, but it's nice that he does, because he acknowledges that fans like you and fans like me want to know what's going on. But looking at the schedule, and based off of what he said this weekend, I think it's pretty much a guarantee he's not going to return for Watkins Glen. I was thinking that maybe if he was feeling good enough, he could start the race and then maybe get back in at Bristol. But based off of what was being said over the weekend, it almost feels like Dale Jr. is prepping fans to know that he's not getting back in the car at least next week. Jeff Gordon over the weekend as well came out and said that he would stay in the car for as long as Hendrick Motorsports needed him to stay in the car. So I think there's a possibility